Welcome to the Tower Talk podcast, a place for honest and open conversations to support you in living your best life from the inside out. Join me on this journey of self-discovery as we explore what it means to reach next level badassery and cut through the BS. So tune in, stay a while, and I promise I'll be right here alongside you as we figure this shit out together. Bonnie is the epitome of who you see online is who you get in real life. She has a joy for life, movement, and helping others see their bright light through Flow School and through her Instagram and podcast, Yoga Strong. Well, Bonnie Weeks, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
I am delighted to be here with you.
I love talking with you and I love seeing you in real life, which I haven't in a couple of years now, but you are the epitome of what you see online is what you see in real life. And I know that's like a huge part of you, your brand, and just like you are just authentically you. And I just appreciate that about you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That means a lot. I mean, that truly is one of the things that I thought of from the very beginning of being on social media is like, I want to, like, if I'm going to show up with these people in real life, I want to be the same person online as I am in real life. And I think the way that you show up even in saying, hey, people, you can doctor photos in this way, then what? Those people are going to see you in real life and be like, so that's not what your ass looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the way that your voice sounds or the filter that you're using. And to be like, let's just be real humans.
Yes. And how do you authentically keep up with that year after year when there's so many ways to change things around? Like, how do you keep being yourself?
I don't know how you don't be yourself. Yeah. And be like, well, how do you keep up with that year after year? I'm like, I don't feel like I'm keeping up with anything. I think that's the thing, is if I'm not trying to align myself to any other expectation other than be your own damn self, then that's easy.
Yeah. Okay. So then how do you not compare yourself to everyone else that's making it further, doing more, making more, all the things?
Sure. That's an interesting question, because I think as many people as I work with too in the online space and a lot of yoga teachers where I tell them, I'm like, we could all teach Warrior 2. Here's a room of 50 of us, and we could all teach the same thing. You can think of that for personal trainers. You'd be like, okay, here's how you do a back squat. Cool. And so why is it necessary for any of us, like for me to be here when you're here and could do the same thing? And so I think there's several layers we could think about in regards to comparing. And one of them would be that I am not the voice that will land for everyone, and neither is anybody else. And the way that I might describe something is going to be different than another person and be the aha moment that somebody needs. And if I wasn't there, they wouldn't have it. And so my voice is important in that way, just as much as somebody else's voices or experience or the way that they might lead or the way that they make a joke or the tone of their voice.
Yeah.
So I think there's some view that we can look at competition and say, yes, it exists. Yes. And even talking to some teachers being like, this teacher has like a wait list of 15 people up through their class, and I have like 3 people in my class. And to feel some sort of texture with that experience can be tricky. Yeah. And also, like, my first speaking studio time, like a 5:30 p.m. class versus like a 2 p.m. in the middle of the afternoon, like they're just different. Right. They're different crowds, right? So there can be that, but it doesn't make any one person less or more because their voice is different than somebody else's. And it is something that you have to continually, I think, build a home in yourself. And that's like a phrase I think of so often, like, well, how am I holding myself? Am I showing up in a way that I would want to be with me? And how do I hold myself there? Because I will always be able to compare myself to somebody else if I wanted to, or to myself in another version of myself.
Right.
And that's shitty.
Yeah, it is.
And it doesn't create a lot of room to move or to breathe or to change or be curious or be brave if I'm only ever looking at who's on the edges rather than like who I am.
Do you feel like that has come with time as a teacher, coach, and just as a human being? Or do
Mm,
you feel like you are constantly working on that?
both,
Yeah.
probably. I think both in that, I think getting nerdy about human design has been interesting to me because I've been given a leadership in my life, even as a young child, to be like, you're in charge of this.
Yeah.
And being a part of a religious group where they had different leadership and they'll be like, you're the president of this. And I'm like, I'm 12. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so to either be given it or assumed it in some different ways and the learning that comes with that. But I have had such a journey of figuring out how to own my voice and what does that even mean and all the things and feel like I'm just tapping into that now and
Yeah.
saying like, oh, this is where we're at. And so I think it's a continual work of how do I show up as myself. And also I think there are pieces of it that are just part of who I am that were seeds of things that I've helped grow over time just by trying to pay attention to them and
Yeah.
do hard things.
It's funny because even when I met you like years ago, I think you were going through this whole like finding your voice. And I think that as entrepreneurs, as coaches, as just human beings, we figure that out all the time. And in different chapters and different parts of our life, in our business, in our relationships, it's like different parts. But I think oftentimes, and I say this from myself, I do compare myself to these other chapters, but that's not who I am anymore. And so it's this constant like tug, push and pull of like trying to figure out who I am right now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird.
Absolutely. Well, because there's nothing like teaching or coaching or standing up in front of people. There's nothing quite like it because you have to see yourself. Because
Yeah.
there's other people that mirror back to you what you're saying, what you're doing, like what you think about yourself. And you have to be really vulnerable. You have to let people look at you.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of growth in a leadership position of being a coach or a teacher or a mentor.
Yeah. Wow. We dove into this really quick. Who is Bonnie Weeks? Tell me more about who you are as a human. I see like Bonnie is Carrot Bowl Bonnie on Instagram, and we'll get into why you actually chose that name. But when I see you, I'm like, I know she's a yoga person, but like you are very multifaceted. I think that's another thing I really relate to and appreciate about yourself is that you have your hand in all the things and do so many things. So who is Bonnie? Tell us a little bit more about you.
Who is Bonnie Weeks is a big question. And you're absolutely right that I think there is a multifaceted sort of experience as I look at myself now. I'm 40, which feels very exciting because I'm just getting good.
Mm.
And I again, I've declared at the beginning of last year, but I'm like, even this year, I'm like, no, this is the year I'm going to be the strongest I've ever been. Like literal physical strength. Like I'm
Okay.
going to lift the heaviest, like do it. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to be the most physically strong in this year. And I'm constantly like in that kind of feeling of things. And even for my business and whatever the hell all of that is evolving into, I, I know I've been at it for a second. And I also feel like I'm just beginning.
Mm.
Like there's parts where I'm like, oh, but now I'm beginning, or now I understand where I'm at or the direction I want to go in or who I'm helping or how I'm helping them. Or now I know what to do with how to like do my money or like run all the
Yeah.
hours of behind the scenes that it's like so much. And so I think those are parts of who I am. I'm 40. I'm just getting stronger. I'm just beginning, even though I've been doing things for a second. I was born into the Mormon religion. So I grew up and left the church just about eight-ish years ago. So a large portion of my life bought in, did the things, ran the things, like full belief, all the stuff. And then left that, was married for 16 years. I have 3 kids. I have a 17 a 16 and a 12-year-old, and love them. And kids are a billion things, and some of the biggest teachers, and hard as hell and amazing, all of those things. I love to teach yoga. I love to watch bodies move. I mean, bodies are so fucking amazing. Oh, I swear. I don't know if I can do that here, but
it's fine.
Cool. I love watching people move. And I think very much like you, like watching people figure out how to take up space with themselves. And I keep coming back to movement because I think it's such an integral part to giving ourselves permission, but then it's other pieces too. It's how we share our voice, how we say what we want. It's like being willing to look at ourselves. I love to make naked pictures. I love to create events where people are really on like body celebration. This gets to be you celebrating your body, whatever the hell it looks like right now. It's worth celebrating. And writing poetry, and like there's a lot of individual holding with people. So I think it's, movement is a way in because we can touch it. And we can't touch a lot of other things about ourselves. And they're just like ideas of things, or their feelings, or their desires, or hopes, or fears, but we can touch the body. And I think that's one of the reasons perhaps that I have always liked it. Perhaps it's also because it helps my brain.
Yeah.
It always has from a young age, but it is a way in for like so many things. So I also love sauerkraut.
So yeah, I also have this beautiful plant behind you. Holy crap, that is amazing.
I do.
You're
like
a plant
plants.
mama as well. So you have 3 kids, you teach yoga, you have a podcast, you have an awesome email newsletter, you have an Instagram, you have all the things. How do you do it all? How do you manage it all?
I am obsessed with what I do. And I have a lot of privilege of being able to step into this space. I was a full stay-at-home mom and had my little kids, and their dad really supported like me to do that. And I think about it often actually. And that was like a gift that he wanted to give, was he was going to provide, and I was going to take care of the kids and do the things, right? That's what we were going to do. But then the kids got to school age. The thing that I think of often is like, I could go paddle boarding whenever I wanted. No time, no appointments to show up for, no things to create, no content to create, no like anything. I could just go. And I think about that in particular sometimes because I have chosen this other path where I can still go paddleboarding whenever I want, but I also have decided to pick up some responsibility in choosing and in our very conscious choice to uncouple and to go different paths. And for me to be like, no, I'm going to step into some business things, and feeling so ready when it was that right time.
Mm-hmm.
But how, I mean, it's still freedom. Like I chose freedom looks different in different ways, and how I'm like, oh, now I'm going to be responsible for holding these people and these experiences, and designing and crafting a sort of life for myself that is not dependent on somebody else to provide for me, which I fucking love. Like I love it so much. I will never do money with anybody else again.
Yeah.
Because it has given me something that I really wanted, and 100% worth the trade of like, I mean, like, well, I don't know, what do I want to do with my day to day? Because I kind of had this experience when my kids were little. I was like, oh, they're all going to be in school, and I want something to step into. And I decided to just ask myself, what's one thing I could do that would move me forward, but not burn me out?
Mm-hmm.
And then I started coaching in my garage, and I would coach workouts like twice a week, and would do that with moms and with the little kids. And we'd put the kids inside, and sometimes they'd be screaming. We're like, you just go in there. We're going to work out some mom hour.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to think about that time. It's twice a week so it was 2 hours a week, right? That I was doing that. And I was showing up, like, it was a little bit around that time that I got on Instagram, and I just have loved creating in an artistic way, which feels like sharing on Instagram for me, and then also creating community there and working myself into a space where people have asked enough questions or been curious enough to where I could pay attention to say, oh, how can I meet these people? These people want more.
Yeah.
So I think the idea of how I do it all is, first of all, I don't do everything all at once. I'm like really trying to be a full ass person. Like you can't give like a half ass here and a half ass here. Like I want the full ass.
Yeah. And you can tell if you're only getting one cheek.
Right. Yeah. You're like, that's just like a side of lefty, right? Or just the butthole. Like, where's the cheeks?
The hole.
So, I mean, we could say, I want to split my attention, but right here, right now, I'm like, no, I'm full ass. I'm here on Tara's podcast. Like, this is what I'm doing. And so figuring out how to structure my time, especially even though I am an undiagnosed brain, but like there's a lot of neurodivergent type of things that I see in my own brain, and figuring out how to structure myself to keep myself accountable. Hiring a coach when I was really stepping into online business was really helpful. Yes, for the accountability and structure, but also just to be seen in the process, because it's an alone sort of work.
It is.
And to have somebody who is willing to show up and talk about it just as much as you and be invested in it is like take my money. Like that was $200 a week that I was paying for over a year. And then I continued to pay at different intervals, like after I didn't meet as much. But that's a lot of money and probably still one of my biggest investments, but I would not be here without it. And so that has really helped me stay consistent. And even in my life with my kids and all the other demands as a parent and as a ex-partner, a co-parent, as a lover, as like, pay the water bill, like there's a lot of things in that. And because I am both my own boss and employee, which sometimes they get along better than others.
Yeah.
Like, who's in charge today? That also means that I could work in the morning and do other things in the afternoon, or I'll be like, oh, wow, it's 3 p.m. and I have not done any work today. I was like, I guess I'll be working till 10 o'clock tonight and be doing stuff. So it's a tricky thing to step into this space. And I really think you have to be a little bit obsessed with the thing you're doing to make it work, because it 100% will not just happen. And we'll start with that.
I thought about this today. Entrepreneurship, having your own business, is one day you are running full speed at a brick wall, like head first, full speed, going nowhere. And then the next day you are on top of the mountain and you can see this like beautiful view. And yesterday I had the first day, and today I'm having more of a second day. And I'm like, it ebbs and flows so much, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's exactly what you said. We can be flexible. We can do what we want. And we fucking love what we do and are just so passionate. And I think what's great about you is that it shows. It's not going to show the half-ass. It's going to show that you put a lot of effort and thoughts into everything you put out there. And so I always ask, as entrepreneurs, because it is hard to juggle everything, but we still get it done no matter what. And I don't have 3 kids running around. So I still am like, every mom out there, I'm like, you are a superhero. And then every mom that has their own business, I'm like, you are superhero. Like, that is so cool to me.
Well, it made a big difference, because at the same time, I really felt, I was like, I am stepping into a space. I'm going to be doing the things here. And it was that same season, like all the things happened. And October of 2019, my ex moved out and I started my podcast, Yoga Strong, and I offered my first mentorship online. And all of it happened within a matter of weeks from each other. So interesting, but it was already rolling. It'd been rolling for months, some of those things. And then all of it happened together. And I think that's so, I don't know, that just continues to fascinate me. But I will say that, and I think especially as I talk with people who are trying to create something of their own and have 100% time with their kids. Like their kids are always going to be with them. They're always going to be in that mode. I do believe that part of my ability to be in this place, one, my kids are not like needing me so much because they're a little bit older,
Right.
because I'm not as much in the trenches. And two, when that time when I decided to step into business, then I was splitting time with my kids, which is both heartbreak and expansion of my own self. And it's both things where I miss them. I miss them. And it is why I have been able to create what I can create, because you lose so much momentum in transition. And with kids around, there's so much transition times where they want something, or you hear a noise, or you're helping with somebody, or you're driving someone, and then you're trying to jump in and out of task. And task transition like kills productivity of trying to get shit done. And so I think for anybody who might be listening, who is a parent of young kids, who is always a parent, like doesn't have a split time, like it's going to take longer. It doesn't, and it's going to be the right time, because you can't hold more right now anyway. So it's right to have it go slow right now, because if there was more, it would be even harder. So letting it like slowly evolve and taking just those steps that don't burn you out, or figuring out, oh, that burned me out, I need to step back again and figure out what that is. I think that's such an important piece of it, because it's, you learn as you go, and then the kids get older and you learn again. So it's fine.
Also just giving yourself grace with all the process too. I think with this comparison or what you think you want, it's like taking longer is better, but having that mindset switch can be hard too. How does it feel to have almost 3 teenagers?
What's up, talkers? I'm not sure if that's our nickname yet. I'm working on it, so we're just going to go with it. Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I am here to talk about our sponsor for today's episode. Let's talk about supplements. What do you guys like to use? I love Legion Athletics. Give me that vanilla whey protein in a shake, in my overnight oats. Heck, I might even just dry scoop it. That's how much I love it. The texture, the taste, the quality, it's top notch. Not only does it taste great, but they're backed by science. From their protein powders to pre-workouts, they've got the formula down. It's like they've cracked the code for better workouts and recovery. They deliver the highest quality supplements because they have a team of doctors, dietitians, nutritionists, and other clinicians making sure all the supplements go through rigorous third-party testing, so you know what you put in your body is safe. I may be biased because this is the only brand I've been using for years, but I think you should give it a shot. So if I've changed your mind and you're a little curious, head on over to legionathletics.com. Use code TerraTalk to get 20% off your next order. See what fits your vibe. No pressure from me. I'm just saying this could be the upgrade your fitness routine needs. Now back to more Tara.
Right? My youngest is 13 in like 3 months. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. And actually, I have shared, I think speaking of full ass, I've shared your cue with them about asses. Okay. Actually, I have shared it so many times, Tara. When you talk about deadlifting and you talk about hips and you talk about a flashlight shoved up your butt and then like where the flashlight shines.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And I have said that in gyms. I have said that to my kids, and people are kind of like, okay, so you're this type of person.
Yeah. And then you're like, yeah, I am. And now they'll always think about the butthole flashlight.
Yeah. Cause like my kids, it's such a fun age. I love this so much. I think teenagers get a bad rap. Like they're so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I get to be in the garage with them, my garage gym, and we're working out and we're all sweating in there, and
they work out with you?
Yeah. And they work out on their own. And they like, my youngest has picked up, like he's using Fitbod and he's like, I'm working out 5 times a week. Amazing. And his dad has a gym at his house too. My oldest has gotten so strong and he's like stoked that he's gaining weight and doing the things. My middle wants to do kickboxing. So like all of them are like, they all are like it. And so, we'll be out there. I've shared your deadlifting flashlight up the butt. It's great. It fits perfect for teenagers, but it really is one of my favorites. It takes so much time because we talk about real shit and emotions, but they're like humans. They're not just like, where are the fishy crackers?
Yeah. They're real humans with real personality and real lives, and they're turning into adults. And it's so cool that they have you as a mom because you were able to like guide them to where they are today. And I'm sure them seeing you do movement and you talk openly about all the things has helped them so much. Like sometimes I'll think about me growing up, and we never talked about sex. We never talked about finances. We never talked about emotions. Like sometimes I still say that I'm going to therapy, and my brother's like, why do you go to, that's so stupid. I'm just like, how are we so like this still? But it's really like you are so much of a product of your environment. And with you opening up the floor with your kids, I'm sure it's helped them immensely, and emotionally, physically, and mentally.
Well, I hope so. And I also, yeah, like we all parent in different ways, and
Yeah.
we're all going to be affected by our parents. So I'm like, they'll pick up whatever. Like they'll have some beef or something with me. It's fine. But I do really like, if there's one thing I'm really proud of actually, is that they feel and they respond to me and they tell me how easy it is to be here in this house and to have conversation of all different sorts, and that it feels like the place to do that.
Oh, that's
And yeah, and for my kids to be like, Mom, isn't it kind of weird that we talk about sex in a very like personal sort of way, like not revealing who of my children we might be sexually active, but like to like really dive into that and to be like, well, like my friends aren't like having these conversations with their moms. And I was like, but they wish they were. They wish that it felt cool enough and easy enough. And I was like, you zoom ahead 10 years, you're going to be so glad that this is what we get to have together. And this isn't weird for me. This is normal. This is like anything else. Sex is just as normal to talk about as what size of shoe do you need to wear? Oh, you've grown out of your shoes. Cool. Like, or like, oh, seems like you're hungry right now. Let's make some food. It's just normal. It's just like a part of the experience. So I think, and those things coming from such a conservative place too, like those are things that just, I don't know, I just started doing them in small ways. And whenever kids had questions, I would answer the question, and I would just answer it to what they were asking, and not try to like, if they were like, what part of your body did I come out of? Then I'm not going to like go into teaching them about anal sex. Like that's like, right. Like we're just going to answer.
You're like, Mom, I came out your butthole. Where did we get here?
Right. They're like, wait. I know I'm confused. So yeah. And, making it just really easy to talk about the things, which means that I had to make it easy for me to talk about the things even before them. And part of what, I had a series on my Yoga Strong podcast called Let's Talk About Sex. And I did that like once a month for like a year with my friend. And then I split that. And so I have my other podcast called Sexy Sunday, where I'm like, okay, I want to talk about these stories and have it be a place that we're like, let's retell the story of what we can or can't talk about. And I think regardless of that or anywhere else, I'm always interested in like, well, what do you think the rule is? Like, is that really a rule? And I'm definitely gonna push the edges of whatever the perceived rule of something might be, or why it's going to be that. And even in yoga. And I remember being in my yoga teacher training, and I did a hatha yoga training, which is a pose practice, less flow, which, was a little bit of a shock to my system. I didn't know that I was going to go into that. But I really liked the teacher, and I was like, cool, I'm going to sign up for the teacher training. And I was like, okay, what do I do with this? It's fine. It worked out. I love it. I'm grateful for it. But I remember at one point, so Iyengar, we were like using the book Light on Yoga, which is written by Iyengar. And it's like, it will have a pose on a page and say how to do it, to say all the things that are benefits from doing that pose. The lists are long, and like, then maybe the reasons why you shouldn't do the pose. So like every page has this on it, and it's great to have like perhaps a handbook. We'll call it a handbook of postures. It does just come from one person though. It comes from one person and his experience with a lot of people. We all know, like for you and me, there's a type of person that might come and work with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are a lot of other people that might not work with us, that might give us different input about what we're doing, or other ways to do it, or other paces to do it, or other reasons why it's good or bad. So, it becomes in a way a selective audience. Not that it's bad and not that it doesn't benefit people though. But I thought about that with Iyengar, and I was like, I am so grateful. Like, yoga has been passed down in a tradition that is deep and comes from like a deep history of people who are practicing in India, and the East and the West definitely practice yoga in different ways. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful for that. I would not be here if it were not for people who brought it to the West and who let it change over time, because it wasn't even a physical practice.
Right.
And so for Iyengar to like create it as a physical practice, to create this as a tool for a stepping stone, I'm like, absolutely, yes, we need that. But I was also the person in my teacher training who out loud was like, but like, is Iyengar the only one saying this? Like, why does it even matter?
Yeah, I'm sure they loved that.
Oh yeah, my teacher trainer and I are we are good friends now. Like, but he was kind of like, but I was like, it's just one person, and it's just him pulling from a selective audience of students of like why this is good, and a lot of dudes and not women, and from a very traditional patriarchal society as well. And so I am definitely like the pusher of being like, but is that the only way? And that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that there could be other sorts of room to wiggle in.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. How did we even get there?
I don't know. That was a tangent though. Here we are, rule pushing. I mean, but I would say, like, let's flip this though. Speaking of rule pushing, I think this is one of the reasons why I've connected with you and why I love the way that you show up, because I don't know. I think there's a stoicness perhaps that maybe we can show up with, is like, this is how we do the things. This is how we perform. And this is what a person is. And I think in the same way that you're like saying, well, like, you're like this whole person and you do these other things. That's how I view you too, Tara. And the way of expanding the rules, we'll put that in air quote, of what a person is, or what a trainer is, or what like a woman is. And what a woman has to look like, or what a profession that a woman does, or is online, like working online. Is that even real? Is that a real job? Like, and so I think that, my connection to you as well, and why I love seeing what you do. And honestly, I was looking through my photos and I found a screenshot back when you couldn't save things on Instagram. I would screenshot so many things from Instagram. And I have screenshots of your posts, like, I don't know, back in like 2016.
Yeah.
Oh no, like who knows when. Like, and so I think you've always been a person who is like pushing into the edges of like, okay, yeah, we're doing cool shit here. And this is why we're not doing it this way. Even though the rest of everybody is kind of doing it this way, we're not doing it this way. Or I am talking about this, or this is what my body is, and I'm going to celebrate it, even though it's not that, which maybe some people think is like better than this, but like, who the fuck are they to say that? So,
but also, who makes the rules? Like, in the grand scheme of things,
exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
Like, I think, oftentimes I get clients that'll be like, I'm feeling this way. I feel like I look too big, or I wish I could change this. And I'm like, where did you hear that from? Where did that come from? And then there's always like this backstory of someone said this to them a while ago, or their mom said this in front of them, or whatever. And that's the rule that they made in their head. But they didn't make those rules. It's exactly what you're saying. Society said that it's better to look smaller. It's better to not be muscular. Women are bulky when they look, whatever, but that doesn't mean that it is like set in stone. It's not like we're in the stone age of like, this is the rule we must follow. You know what I mean? So I think because we're at this really great time in 2024 now of like, there are so many people being themselves. And I just feel like we're in such a great place to just see that more. And maybe both of us in 2016 or 17 or whatever, were able to showcase that. Now I think it's just expanding to more people.
This is why we're beginning. We're in the beginning stages.
We're in the beginning. Speaking of beginning phases though. Okay. I know you love movement, and movement's a huge part
part of your life. But did your movement start with yoga or did it start with strength training?
Neither. It's started like,
Tell me.
like, this is like, I'm a mover as a person. So as a kid, I was always doing the things and
like sports and stuff.
Sports. And I would say like it really solidified probably halfway through my 5th grade year. So there was like intramurals in 5th grade. I played basketball. And I love basketball. And I'm like, recently I've been thinking, I'm like, I think I need to find a 3-on-3 team.
I was literally just thinking the other day how much I miss basketball too. And I'm not really that great, but I was like, I feel like I want to join a league or something.
Yeah. I'm like, I just need to go box some people out and like get a little elbowy and like, I just need to get physical a little bit.
Love it. Although, are you like slightly worried about injuries? Because that makes me like slightly worried.
I mean, a little bit because I don't half-ass it. And I am going to like
super competitive.
Right. I'm going to like come away with like scrapes and bruises and like weird shit. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be fine.
Here we go.
We're just getting stronger. That's good.
Yes, exactly.
But like halfway through, so it was basketball season, my 5th grade year. And I was playing intramurals and the way that the coaches work. So, and it's interesting watching my kids play sports now because they don't have integrative sports within the school systems. They do it within the rec leagues within the city.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then they have way less teams in the high school. So in my high school, there was a freshman, a sophomore, a JV, and a varsity basketball team. Here, they have JV and varsity. So many less kids get to play in so many sports. Volleyball, it's the same as well. Like there's JV, varsity, and basketball.
Wait, how many kids are in there, like their grade?
A lot. I don't know. There's like, 6 schools, even in the city, 6 high schools.
Why is there only JV and varsity? Mine was like, varsity, JV, sophomore, freshman. There was like a freshman A and B team.
Yeah. But they don't have it. And so I just feel so like, I'm like, oh, these kids are missing out on like more movement. So when we talk about like kids missing movement, we're like, well, they're not being given the opportunities. And is that a funding thing? Is it an interest thing from the school or from coaches? Like, I don't know. But regardless, let's zoom back. When my middle school that goes 6 through 8, there was the coach would cycle because it was just like, it was 5th and 6th grade were intramurals together. And then 7th, 8th, you were actually like kind of on a team and doing the things. And there was a coach that would stay with you. The coach, if you were 7th grade, you had that same coach 8th grade. And so they would rotate. So they were with the same group for 2 years in a row. Yeah. So you really got to be with that coach. So in my 5th grade, the coach that would be my coach in 7th grade came and watched our intramurals to see who the kids were that were going to be coming that would eventually be on the team. Yeah. And this was my coach, Mr. Jenkins. He was the shop teacher as well. He's the teacher who had the loudest voice in the whole school, and he taught me how to make things with my hands in wood shop and drafting. I love drafting. And he'd also write his own inspirational quotes up on the corner of the chalkboard.
I love it.
And he's such an interesting character. He's retired now, but like coach, like he's just coach. And he was such an integral part of like my childhood and my moving, because it was at that intramural that he shared with me that he did an open gym before school at 6 a.m. every single morning. He lives 45 minutes away from the school, and school didn't start till like, I don't know, 7:38, whatever. Yeah. And he would get up every morning in the snow in Montana and drive and open the gym for any kid who wanted to come and play and like practice and just shoot hoops. And like, we didn't even scrimmage, often. It's like, depends on who's there. Yeah. He had like the cord things that attached to the ground. You can practice jumping. And so I went at 6 a.m. every morning for 3.5 years, like that middle of my 5th grade, all the way through 8th grade. And I would go play basketball. And I loved it. Yeah. And I think about often how he'd always be like, Bonnie, be meaner. Like, I was like, nice. Now I'll be like, I'm going to give you my ass. Like, back up. This is my ball.
Let's fucking go.
Right?
That's so cool. That's so great. Yeah. And it's so cool to have that kind of person that you think of now, like decades later that was like a huge aspect and just a great part of your life. Okay. So you played basketball and that was like into high school.
Played basketball in high school, my freshman, sophomore year. And then the coach was real shitty for like that JV varsity. Like they always practiced together. I wasn't certain that I really wanted to play for him. And I lost my community because I got put on the sophomore team as a freshman because I was playing a lot. But then it was a whole different school. It was a bigger school. I wasn't playing with anybody that I knew.
Right.
And I didn't have that same rhythm that I was in before. So I kind of lost some of that and wasn't practicing as much. And then when I got cut, I was just like, I think I'm okay with that because I don't want to play for him. He's shitty.
Yeah.
And mean. Like he was mean. But I played volleyball for those first couple of years as well. And then I played tennis all through high school, played doubles and loved that. And then I went to college and kind of didn't do anything. Yeah. And then would run a little bit. I didn't go to play any sports. And at the very end, when I was pregnant, I was like, my first kid was born 3 weeks before my graduation from college because I was Mormon. So you can't have sex unless you're married. So you get married young, you say, have babies. This is what happens.
Yep.
So I remember one of the first times that I remember going into the gym to lift or work out was actually when I was pregnant.
Okay.
When like the gym issued t-shirts that you have to wear to go into the gym. Yeah. And because my ex had always lifted, he'd played football, he'd been in the weight room. And that really was my introduction to lifting weights. And so little moments, and of course they give birth and move and we go to California. And after I had my second kid in California, that's when I was like, I think I want to run. And running hurt my knees really bad. And the loop around our apartment complex, like if you were to run the road, would be like almost like a quarter mile. And I would run around it as long as I could, stop in tears and in pain because my knees hurt so bad.
No.
And then I would foam roll multiple times a day. Like I'm rolling out my quads, my ass, like all the things and so I was like, I'm going to foam roll morning and evening and before and after runs. And so a mixture of foam rolling and getting into some more strength training, pretty minimal, but staying with it. I was like, no, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And I eventually worked up to where I wasn't really strength training at the gym. I eventually would go to the gym there because my ex was in grad school. And then I would go running. And so sometimes we go to the gym, but I worked up to where I could do half marathons with zero pain, but it took a lot to get there. And then even now, if I go out running, I'm like, okay, knees, we haven't done the work to be running knees, to whatever needs to happen. But I did do that. And then, it was in all that time though, that I really did find weightlifting eventually. And then my running got stronger and faster. Yeah. And I had moved here to Portland and I was weight training and running and loving it then because I was like, I feel so fucking good. Yeah. And then I found yoga. And so my youngest was like pretty little, like he's like 3-ish. And and then I had found yoga. So I would spend every day, I'd be like weight training, running and doing yoga.
Wow.
All the time. I didn't have any of the responsibilities. So like, this is again, my obsession to be like, I have the time. Yeah. This is like, I'm taking care of house. My ex at the time, then at some points he was working 40 hours. Sometimes he's working like 70 hours a week. So it's me as mom and like doing the things that make me feel good. So I was moving my body and, and I eventually got to the point where I wanted to quit running, but just because I was interested in what strength training, like more focus on strength building would do for me. Yeah. Because running takes so much time. Yeah. And to like go out and and I'm like, I love the feeling of like go out for a 7-mile run and just be like, that was nothing. Great. Like that feels like that. Honestly, for some reason for me, I was like 7 miles, I can just go do it. And I'm amazing. My feet took me here. That's incredible what my body can do. Yeah. But I got plantar fasciitis in my feet. Yeah. After a 15-mile run day followed by an 11-mile hike with friends all in the same day with the wrong shoes. Yeah. And I was okay because I was like, you know what? I wanted to set it down, but I didn't want to because I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this gave me an easy out to say, okay, cool. I will do yoga and I will strength train.
Yeah.
And like, that doesn't mean that I don't like to boulder or climb or like do like whatever, like all the other things, but like as like a standard, like what am I doing for most commonly is those things. And I love sharing strength training with yogis. It makes flow more fun. Like if you have more control over your body, more like a capacity to understand what you can and cannot do. And just like the play, like you just get it's a different sort of play that complement each other. So
listen, all movement is great movement, right?
Yeah.
But strength training will make all movement feel better. It's like in every episode I do, I'm just like, here's a little nugget of why you need to be strength training. Like there's so many, strength training is basically like the butthole. It's the butthole. And then everything else spreads out around it. That didn't work. I'll think about that again. But it's like, it's the middle, it's the center. And like every other movement is just going to feel better doing it. And so exactly what you said, strength is going to obviously help runners, like in so many aspects. It's going to help yogis. It's going to help climbing. It's going to help in so many other ways. And so I love that that's like the foundation of so much of what you do too, because you can only do those yoga poses if you are strong. You can only feel really good in a transition if you are strong.
Right. Well, and a single leg deadlift is a warrior 3. Like the positions are the same. So if you do it like harder and then you get to that, you're like, oh, I can do this. Like this I can do. So I think that's an interesting, like the brain kind of games of approaching one and then being able to do the other. But I would also say, like as an aside, not aside / whatever, last year, like I'm a year out-ish of like the worst pain in my life of low back and my left SI. And it was not a specific injury that brought that to me. It's made me really dive into like, what the hell does wellness even mean? And as somebody in the wellness industry, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I think that it's a really big topic, actually. It's a longer list than you might expect, and things that are on it that you might not realize or kind of guess would be on there. But I am so grateful for strength training because I knew that part of what would help me is like lifting is going to help me and help me get rid of this pain. And 100%. And especially focusing like whole backside body. I'm like, you have a strong backside of your body. And when I think about some of the time, like the time right before it really decided to yell at me.
Yeah.
And having even given natural childbirth without drugs, this is so much worse. This is non-sleep. This is like sleep for an hour and a half and takes a half hour to stand up out of my bed, crying in tears and gripping, and that nothing felt good. Like it really was so debilitating, and people live like that constantly. And I got to the point where I was like, strength training will heal me. And I told myself that because it's really easy when you're lost in a moment of pain and when you're lost and swallowed in that, and there's nothing, like it's constantly in your brain. And you know, of course there can be non-physical things, but I think a lot of us, like we can have like a physical ailment in our body that you're always like, it's always nagging at you.
Yeah.
And I decided, like, I was like, I know how to lift shit. Like I know how to do these things. And I told myself I just had to go in the garage, my gym is, and I just had to move it through a range of motion that felt good to me. Right. It didn't matter what I could do before. And I had 20-pound dumbbells in my hand for a deadlift. I was standing up with them on my hips and I could hinge forward. Those dumbbells didn't even go past my knees, right? In my hands. Like it was like the smallest sort of hinge. And I went in the range that was pain-free. And really this conversation of pain and discomfort we're cool with. Like when it's pain and your body wants to escape, the brain can start doing weird things with pain science. But so I was like, I understand my brain can like start doing and trying to protect me, but how can I start to move through this? And we're now like that. I'm not in that place anymore. My hip will still talk to me and my SI will talk to me, but I also recognize why it talks to me in some ways too. And I think A lot of it has to do with sitting. A lot of it has to do with stress. A lot of it has to do with how we're sharing our voice or not. And what the hell do you really want? It has to do with what type of time you make for friends and for people in your life. That's not for work. That's not to prove. That's not to create any sort of revenue. It's about putting yourself in other people's hands and letting yourself get served and seen without having to return anything.
Yeah.
It's rest, it's play. It's like so many things. And
Pleasure.
Pleasure. It's all of these things. And so I recognize too, and it just makes me think about, I'm like, okay, what really is pain when it's not injury really saying? And low back pain in particular, really saying, because there's so many people with it.
Yeah.
That's not a specific injury. And I think it's all of these things. It's all the other parts of your life that you're not paying attention to. Strength training being 100%. I love how you're saying like strength training will help everything work better. Like it truly is. Like I had to back out of yoga because some of yoga is really, there's so much flexibility, but folding, down dog, the worst. And so it was more about like doing cars and pails and rails. That was great. And strength training. So I don't know, there's rabbit hole for pain, but there we go.
No, that's great. I mean, I think we get distracted by what's the quick fix or what's this is going to be, but it's exactly what you say. Like, yes, it's the strength training aspect, but it is how much we sit, how much we're on our phone, how much we're, in our relationships with people, with ourselves, our mindset, like,
did you get outside?
Like there's so nutrition, obviously there's just so many aspects to it. And I think we're in this world where it's great that people are expanding and doing their thing and being bold and beautiful, but also it's how fast can I get things done? And I think every year it's like, they want we as a whole want a quicker and quicker fix. And so stepping back and really looking at the whole picture is so valuable and so important to so many people.
And I think it can feel overwhelming. And even just this list of things, but like, oh my gosh, where do I go? But I think I just want to simplify it for just a second before we like move off that. This past weekend, my kids went to their dad's on Friday and my lover is out of town for a couple of weeks. He's working elsewhere. And so I've had alone time and I love alone time, like all by myself in my house. Like it makes me so happy. I went to Target 3 times on this weekend on one day. That's because I had to return things and then I went to the wrong one. Anyway, it's fine. But I was like, you know what? I can do this because I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And I painted a wall and I was like doing a house project. And yesterday I found myself laughing and giggling to myself, like all by my fucking self. And I just laughing. I thought of whatever I was doing I just thought it was funny. And so I think to simplify it, to say like, well, but how do we get out of a pain body? How do we like find some flow in our lives where we're not just trying to hold the structure? I think all the time of form and flow, form of like the structure and the container building and the scheduling and when are we doing what next and how are we going to do it and who's going to be there? Form. And how do we find the flow that is the play, that is doing something spontaneous, maybe that is saying, this actually feels good. I'm going to stay right here. Or I want this and I'm actually going to say it, or I'm going to say no to this. And like finding the way to like create space for you to find freedom to move. And I think that's what it's about. And this past weekend, it's not that I was doing all of the things that are like on the list, but that I had a space that was a free space for me to move in. And that can look like a lot of different things. That can look like, you're like, I'm going to meal prep. Actually, you had shared your overnight oats and I'm like, it's been a second. And I totally have overnight oats in the fridge because you had shared it on your page. And I'm like, that was part of my play. I'm like, look at this. I'm making overnight oats. And that was fun to me.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that I'm talking to that are trying to build lives, that they're trying to create something really beautiful that offers something to support others that's really useful and usable. And I love that. I love that that's part of what you and I do. And also, I think it will not be sustainable unless we also don't make spaces that are open. That we say, what do you want to play with today? And maybe you end up like laughing your ass off at your own fucking joke. And that's great.
I do that a lot.
I don't know. I don't know. But I think it is as simple as that. That doesn't mean it's easy, but where can you create a pocket in your time where you don't have to prove, produce, or sell something that you do just for funsies, that's demand free? And even just starting with like that one little thing is, I think, the perfect seed to start with.
Okay, that's great. Homework for you guys. Find one thing that you can do today that is just fun and out of the box, just totally different. What are you going to do today, Bonnie?
I think I might go stay at my lover's place in the city. I haven't done for a while, all by myself.
Amazing. I'm gonna draw today. Just draw a picture. I don't even know what it's going to be, but I've got some new colored pencils. I'm excited to use them.
Okay. Text it to me, maybe.
I will. Yes. I'm going to do it later on this afternoon. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for this conversation. It's been so great. I feel like we could chat like forever, but I feel like the podcast would get really long at that point. How about this? What is one thing you can give the audience that if before you started your fitness journey, what is one thing that you really wish you knew? And I know that you've been in this for a long time. We're talking 5th grade, but let's just say over the past, 10 years or so that you got into yoga and into strength training, what is like the one main thing that you want to share with people before you got into it?
That's an excellent question. And I think the time frame that I'm going to right now would be like if I zoom back to me with little kids.
Okay.
And pre-yoga. So if I'm speaking to that self and to maybe somebody who's in that space, I think I would tell that person that it is okay to take up a little space for you. That's what it would be. Because it's really hard sometimes to figure that out, especially if you're the one who's always showing up and taking care of other people. And it can be tricky and not everybody will always understand. But I am a better person because I take care of me. It allows me the space to take care of others. And it's worth the work to make it.
I love that. That's beautiful. Amazing. We didn't get to share too much about where people can find you and what you do. So can you give us a little brief intro of Flow School and maybe just a little bit more about your podcast and just where people can connect with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can find me on podcasts. I have podcast Yoga Strong, where I define yoga as the practice of paying attention. So the conversations are about all different things because a lot of ways we can pay attention in our life. My other podcast is Sexy Sunday, stories about sexuality, sensuality, relationships, and intimacy with yourself and celebrating being more than one thing. We're not just one thing in our life. And I work a lot with yoga teachers. And so especially in regards to sequencing and cueing and really diving into the branch of how the hell do we build a class? How do we guide it? And really supporting teachers to tap into their own voice in that way. So that's what Flow School is. It's both in real life and online. So there's options for both of those things. I have a Studio B, which is my online practice space. People can move with me. I work with mentorship with one-on-one with folks who are maybe stepping into designing a life that they love in regards to kind of the wellness yoga world, and also teachers who really want that one-on-one support as they're stepping into teaching. And other random things and retreats and experiences as they are. So you can just find that on my website, bonnieweeks.com, or my Instagram, _Bonnie. _bowl_Bonnie, which was going to be a food blog, but is not a food.
I actually was looking through your post or your Instagram the other day, and I think someone said that they're like, this, this doesn't have anything to do with the video at all, but like, can you explain that? And I remember you saying that like a while back, and you stuck with it, and it's who you are, and it's a part of your brand and being. So I love it.
What it is.
Yeah. Well, thank
Until
you
I find something else.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, for being here. I appreciate you. Appreciate your words of wisdom and just your energy as a whole. So thank you again for your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Tara.
Thanks for coming to this Tara Talk. I hope you're taking something away from this episode. And if so, I would love to hear about it. You can connect with me at the Tara Talk and at Tara LaFerrara on Instagram. A few ways you can help support the show and help spread the word. You can share it on Instagram, tag at the Tara Talk and at Tara LaFerrara. Send an episode to a friend, and please leave a review if the show is resonating with you. It takes just a few minutes, and it means so much to help this show grow, and it helps me to continue to bring on badass guests for all of us to learn and grow from. I am so happy you're here and excited to be on this journey with you. Until next time, be a badass with a good ass.